Welcome to a special edition of the Idaho Sheriff broadcast with Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff. I'm your co-host and producer, Donna Wilson. Thank you to those listening back on the Idaho Sheriff podcast, which is available on whatever platform you get your shows. In this episode, we cover Sheriff Bob Norris's response to a question asked at a recent town hall in Spirit Lake. Is there sex trafficking in Kootenai County? Everything else in this about 20-minute video is at best secondary to the alarming response that our current sheriff gave to this question about human trafficking right here in Kootenai County. So now here's Dan Wilson to go over the highlights and uncover specifics about some of the people that were in the room that day and what might lead Bob Norris to respond the way that he did. Here's Dan.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on this very brief but special episode of the Idaho Sheriff. Yes, we're going to talk about this town hall. These are these Coffee with Your Sheriff events that are campaign events disguised as town halls. Bob holds these frequently all over the county. This one was held on a Wednesday up in Spirit Lake at around 9 a.m. in the morning. So when we got up there to this venue, which is not too far from our place where we live, we've frequented this location many times. We had our team that was up there, probably 5 or 6. Bob had 12 of his deputies and support staff. And then there were equally about another, 8, 9 Bob supporters that were in the room. I didn't really notice anybody from Spirit Lake at this event.
Yeah, that was one thing we said is that the representation that was there were not the people, the citizens, the residents of Spirit Lake.
So in addition to the ridiculousness of having this entourage of 12 of his deputies, including the undersheriff and jail captains, to name just a few, Bob, you'll see probably in the video right behind him, he has his campaign manager who's wearing his full North for Sheriff t-shirt. So look, we're not fooled. These are campaign events for Bob, and it shows in this clip that we're going to play. 2 other individuals that should be noted, that probably won't see them here, but if you find this source online, you have Charity Joy of the Kootenai Journal, who is a big fan of Bob. She follows him at a lot of events. They are close. She defends him all of the time. She speaks negatively about me frequently online in local forums. She was there with her bodyguard husband, James, who wasn't too happy that I was there. And then you have...
And you can see him in the back. I'm just showing that wide angle shot of the room, and he's in the back left corner there.
The other individual that you guys should note that comes to these events is Mike Petum, who reports for North Idaho News. So remember, both of these independent news outlets are heavily tied to Bob Norris. In fact, you can see Mike Petum flanking Norris as his bouncer at numerous events. In fact, somebody just sent me photos the other day of them together at a local high school football game. But they're ones that come and cover Bob at these events, and they try to run damage control for him. In fact, I think Mike Petum is attempting to run a little damage control because we released this teaser video over the weekend, and he just wants to let everybody know that it's out of context and that Dan Wilson was handled by Bob Norris.
That you were put in your place. Yeah, is what they're saying.
Yeah, we know otherwise, and we will play that fuller version at a later date. But we're talking today about human trafficking. Nobody is surprised that Dan Wilson has been talking about human trafficking for well over 9-10 months since I entered the race, because I believe that it is something that we are not doing enough to combat here in Kootenai County. I've said it over and over again. I've never said, like he said later on, that there's tunnels, nor that there are these special resorts or any other location. I've just generally said from my experience in law enforcement less than 2 years ago that there is human trafficking taking place here in Kootenai County. In fact, it's not taking place just in Kootenai County. It's taking place in the region. Remember that we have a county next door of 550,000 next to our county of 170,000. We have 3 major casinos. We have I-90, 395. Human trafficking absolutely takes place. I talked to a couple of my former police officer partners from the agency that I left, and they confirmed that it is still a gargantuan problem right here in the Pacific Northwest and in this region, and it doesn't stop at the border. So,
and you have Kootenai residents coming to you saying that they know they have evidence.
Yeah.
They know that it's a problem, and they're highly concerned because what their observation is, it's being ignored by Kootenai County Sheriff.
Well, I think Bob Norris is in a little bit of a bind because last fall, prior to him knowing that I had entered the race and what my stances were, he said in a public town hall, I believe it was September 21 of 2023. I might be slightly off on that date. But he was asked, hey, is there a problem with human trafficking? And he said, you know what? I don't see any early warning or I think it was early warning indicators that human trafficking is taking place here in Kootenai County. So it has been memorialized. The chief law enforcement officer of the county and in the region here says, you know what? We don't see any evidence, but it could be happening at massage parlors, right?
There's always a caveat.
There's always a caveat. People, as Donna said, have come to me over and over again. Local recovery groups and rescue groups. I'm in contact with folks all over this country. We talk about it all the time, but Bob has to double down. So he was, prior to this video clip, talking with a group that provides services for abused children in recovery therapy. And they were asking about training and other things. So this led into a question by Quincy Franklin, the BC preacher who came from Portland, covering things like Antifa, BLM, and the riots that took place in 2020. He's moved up to Kootenai County. We became acquainted with him when he showed up at one of our events. I think it was our kickoff event back in December. Bob frequently calls Quincy out because he doesn't like the way Quincy reports factually, and he says that Quincy is a propagandist. Kind of like he says to anybody that says anything against him, they're immediately labeled fake news unless it's the Kootenai Journal or North Idaho News.
He has to bring his own reporters.
In fact, he even says that the Coeur d'Alene Press is hearsay and that they're not accurate, and you're only supposed to trust sources that have a board on their,
Does Mike P. have a
we
board?
We don't know.
North Idaho
we
News?
don't know what Mike P. does. So we're going to set this video up. We just set this video up for you. We're going to go ahead and play it.
And that this is a wide angle shot of the room. I put that up there for you for frame of reference. And we're going to cut to a narrower shot that focuses in on Sheriff Norris as Quincy asks this question.
Problem with sex trafficking here in Kootenai County?
Well, you tell me. You can arrest somebody for sex trafficking. Have you seen it?
I'm asking you.
Well, I'm asking you.
It's your job, not his.
Am I answering him or answering you?
You didn't answer me.
Listen. I know you're waiting for your YouTube moment. Okay. So here is what we will say.
Here's what we will say.
We have 350 police officers here in the state of Idaho. We're here in North Idaho. We have many civilians that are trained in sex trafficking. We do not find any evidence that there is sex trafficking going on here in Kootenai County.
Okay, we'll end it right there. So what Bob does is he takes a question that was given to him respectfully, and in turn, Bob turns it around on him and he says, well, let me ask you, is there sex trafficking taking place here in Kootenai County? And if you see it, you can go ahead and make an arrest. And then you have another gentleman that was in the room who was a former 40-year law enforcement professional from a major agency on the West Coast that said, hey, it's your job, Bob, to answer the question, not the person that asked the sheriff the question, being Quincy. So Bob doubles down again and he says, look, we find no evidence. Well, it's interesting that you don't find any evidence, Bob. And this is really an abysmal failure of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office under your so-called leadership. Because as I've told you already, we know that it's a problem in the region, and there's stats all over to dispel this rumor or this myth, rather, that you're letting people believe that it's non-existent here. And you say that there are children at risk, like at Triple Play and local skate parks. I wonder how they feel, those business owners. Like, I think Candlelight owns one of the skate parks, and then Triple Play, hotel and water slide park and arcade. Wonder how they feel about being singled out as their places not being safe. But the bottom line is that if you have evidence, but you refuse to look at the evidence. You can say, I see no evidence.
That's the important word to focus on. And
We see no evidence.
To listen, actually listen to how he's answering.
So what does that mean? If somebody is murdered out on Main Street and the body's lying on the ground, there's a weapon there, there's blood everywhere, there's footprints that have walked through the blood, and it's a major crime scene, but you walk 3 blocks to the east and never come across that, I guess you can say you've seen no evidence, but it doesn't mean that the crime has not occurred. You're just choosing to walk the long way around so you can safely say, you know what? We see no evidence here. And really, we're not going to go much longer. This is the conclusion of what I wanted to talk with you about. This is very concerning that you have a sheriff that cannot answer a straight question. Bob, you've been in office for 4 years. You are the professional. You are the representative of the people. And this is the way you respond to people that you deem unworthy of a response. I'm being held to a different standard. I'm a candidate, and I frequently have people showing up at events attempting to be rude. In fact, they are rude and try to get me in an I got you moment. But Quincy clearly was not doing that. And you attacked him, similar to what you did with your wife and Bruce Matari's wife, who attempted to have him ejected from a public event that you held, and you were squelching his First Amendment rights. And then later on, you singled him out at that event as being a propagandist. It's very important that people understand that a sitting sheriff bullies people on a frequent basis. And the fact of the matter is, when he tells people to make an arrest, understand that human trafficking is typically run by organized crime. These are very, very dangerous individuals. And I, as sheriff, would never tell you to make a citizen's arrest because I think it's dangerous for you. Not only because you might become guilty of making a erroneous false arrest, in which you'll be held responsible, but more importantly, for your own physical safety. These people do not play. And if you interject yourself and try to take on some of these thugs that are part of the organized crime of human trafficking, you and your family could be in dire danger, in grave danger, and we don't want to see that. I, as a sheriff, would never tell you to do that because my deputies and my law enforcement partners like Spirit Lake, like Post Falls, Rathdrum, Coeur d'Alene, we would be working together to eradicate this out of our community. So that's about all I can say about this one little segment, but we really wanted to get in front of it. I know there are some sycophants of Bob's who you can go and look at the comments online. We won't name them here, but they claim that, that I'm put in my place, that Bob clearly answered the adversarial question.
Or Bob knows his adversaries and doesn't play their game, which they've never let you get away with.
No. He is the sheriff. He's had 4 years. He's done a horrible job. He's continuing to show how unnerved he gets, how irate he gets at these events. And I want you guys to remember that when it comes time to vote in November. Vote for somebody who's been talking about human trafficking since I entered the race. It has a plan to begin eradicating it out of our community. And I have not lost my temper when I've spoken to people. And I've spoken to a lot of people around this community. I do believe in giving people dignity when they ask me questions and to answer with the leadership that is sorely needed right now in Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. So, God bless you all. Remember, we didn't descend from fearful men. We descend from men who understood the times. They dedicated their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Their blood courses through our veins. It's up to us to lift heavy. Tough times are upon us, but we, united together, the entire community, believes in liberty without compromise. We stay together. We can save our county. God bless you all. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this special edition broadcast of the Idaho Sheriff with Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff. For those who want to or are listening to the playback on the Idaho Sheriff podcast, you can listen and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you get your shows. As always, for more information, visit our website at theidahosheriff.com.